And to think that I'm sitting here now and that it's not scary for me, I'm just going to say, well, girl, I am scared. It is very scary for me. You're not the only one. I'm not the only one. I live with my daily anxiety and I live with perfectionism, and perfectionism is me trying to outdo myself because I can get into this place of like never feeling worthy. Hello, welcome back to Dear Career. This is the podcast for women who are doing everything right and still feel invisible. I'm Tiana, and we're here to talk about what it actually takes to feel confident enough to ask for the career and the life that you deserve. Okay, so today's episode is going to be a little bit different. We are actually going to go to you. I'm actually answering some of the real questions that you called in with, because sometimes the most honest career advice comes from what you're actually going through and not just what I think you should be asking. So we'll get into it in just a second. But before we get there, I just wanted to catch you up because I've had a little bit of a break. And it's been a very small break. I'm trying my best to keep up with keeping my episodes going while trying to grow the podcast and trying to add in some strategy. And I'm trying to learn. There's so much I have to learn, but I'm also working with clients, and the client work has been, as a consultant, client work comes and goes. So it's always a wild ride, I feel like, in my world. I also have a toddler who is extremely active and very busy. Um, Having a toddler during summer, trying to keep this little guy busy during the summer with his energy, I know it's just going to keep just going. um, starting to get hot. So in the mornings, I try my best to take him to the park, get him his energy out, because the rest of the day, if it's too hot, we obviously can't go out, but the rest of the day he has to be inside. So I'm just really grateful I have a bit of a flexible schedule that I can do that kind of stuff, for now. But yeah, trying to keep him entertained. Also, the head injuries that this little boy gets on a regular basis, a regular daily basis, I should say, is like insane. I actually used to work at an after school program, and during the summer, it was a summer camp. And so I am no stranger to keeping up with the energy and and my group of kids that I worked with were always boys. Usually I worked with first grade boys, or kindergarten boys going into first grade. And so like I understand all the outdoor activities and all the things that we have to do to keep them busy and entertained. And I love diversifying all the activities. But I guess I wasn't expecting a toddler to mm, have as much energy as this one kid has. It has been a lot. Um, so that has kept me so busy. And my gosh, I'm exhausted. And the days are long during the summer. So me trying to keep up with everything and still trying to keep the podcast going has been a lot. But I don't want to leave anyone hanging. I'm so excited for some of the things that I'm working on. I have been behind on my call-ins, and I have this call-in I need to do, and I'm just going to do one caller because there's two questions on this one caller, so I'm going to do that. But I am going to, there's a couple things I want to get into. I got a lot of good feedback about the moon and following the moon. I'm going to do a couple of different things with the moon. We're going to go back into breaking out the moon cycle again and going and digging in deeper again on something else, a different topic, just like how I did with the monthly 4 cycles of the moon. But I'm also going to pivot a little bit and do it in more of a way where I'm kind of going into holistic view of the moon and maybe more of my practices. So I'm going to pull myself back and still incorporate the moon and do that. So that's going to be coming up. I also got some feedback about getting, and I might, if you are not listening to the podcast on YouTube and you want to switch gears a little bit, that would be great. You don't have to, but I think I might. I'm still working this out because there's some strategy I'm trying to do with this just to grow my channel, grow the podcast, but I don't know how this will work exactly. I'm trying to figure this out a little bit, but I've been asked to explore some of the Reddit files and a couple of subreddits. And that I thought was a really good idea and very exciting. So I actually have been working with Claude to do a little bit of analysis on some common themes so that I can incorporate that into the podcast. But I want to go directly into some specific Reddit topics or some subreddit comments, because there are some really interesting things in there. I'm still kind of going through it, but I would love to dig in a little deeper. And maybe that's more of like a YouTube channel deep dive thing. And maybe I have like a mini episode series. I don't know. But I've seen some other channels do something similar, but this is going to be obviously more career focused. So I'm excited to get into it. I think it'll be fun. It's not my typical, but I think it would be a great opportunity for learning, especially when we learn from other people who are going through something similar to us. It really allows us to apply that knowledge into our own world and our own perspective and figure out how we can grow and just go into our own direction and make some informed decisions, especially when we're getting stuck. So I would love to explore that. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get into our call-in questions and our caller. So we're going to go ahead and get started with that. So first question, let's go ahead and play our first message.
Hi, Tiana. Thank you so much for your podcast. I've really been learning a lot from it, and I really appreciate the way you break everything down. So, I've been working at my job for over 10 years now, which I know is a long time. I work in a really great environment. I love my team. My boss has supported me and promoted me over the years, and my salary and benefits are super solid. I work for a large company, and overall, I don't want to leave the organization. The only challenge with my current department is there's really no upward movement for me. To move higher, I would need an advanced degree, and that would require going back to school for several years. And that's just not something that I'm looking to do at this point in my life. So, my question to you is, how do I know when it's the right time to explore moving to a different department within the company to create more upward momentum? And then, if I do decide to start looking internally, what's the best way to begin that process? Who should I reach out to, and how do I inquire about roles that would offer a similar pay so I'm not taking a massive step backwards in my career? Thank you again. I love to hear your thoughts.
Okay. Okay. This is a great question. I know that this is something that comes up a lot. I've heard this question actually several times from clients, from people I've worked with in the past in HR. This comes up um, from friends. Okay, so it sounds like this caller has been working in a big organization, but has reached a bit of a glass ceiling. And there is no upward mobility, but and they might be at a higher end of comp structure and can't reach any further up. But it also sounds like this caller has been, I guess I would ask this caller, if I could have a conversation, I would ask, are you, how are you feeling about your current role? Are you looking for that upward mobility? Are you happy with what you're doing? Um, I guess one of my previous episodes, we do talk about the idea that in order to advance, you don't necessarily need to manage. That is a common misconception. advancing doesn't necessarily look like promotion. So is that something that you are asking or intending? So I really want you to sit with that. And when you think about yourself in the next 3 to 5 years, what does advancement look like for you? This is something that's very personal, very different for every individual. And I'm going to recommend this for any listener who's listening to this right now and any audience member, because you could be going through the same thing, but um, what does advancement look like for you? Are you in a place where you are wanting to make more money? Are you wanting to have more free time and flexibility? Are you wanting to travel? Are you wanting to buy a home? Like, what are some things that you are looking for? Are you wanting to, really set some roots down and start a family? Like, those are things that you really need to think about. Think about your life holistically. Um, if I were working with you in a coaching capacity, this is an opportunity to bring out the wheel of life, because we've talked about this before, but really kind of looking at your life as a whole and what areas of your life that you want to really focus on. Where are some areas in your life that you feel like are doing well? Where are some areas that you feel like need some more attention? That could be health, that could be romantic relationship, that could be career, that could be other parts of your life as well. Spirituality, that's something that comes up. So when you think about that, what does that advancement look like? Sometimes for some people, that means more freedom and autonomy, um, which means like flexibility in their schedule. So just really thinking about what that looks like for you. Now, you said you weren't necessarily looking to go back to school. So I'm guessing there isn't necessarily courses or additional work that you want to take on. So that's not necessarily the advancement that you'd be looking for at this time, I'm guessing. Just going back to your question, how do you know when it's time to look for, or how do you know when it's time to explore going to a different department? I think, I think that also, again, going back to the very personal thing, this is something that's very personal. How do you feel about your team? Is this something that you feel like you need in your life? Do you feel like your team isn't serving you? Do you feel like you're not growing with your team? Do you have that desire to leave the team or the people you work with? Do you feel like you're not growing, learning enough from them? What is it that you would look for, or what would you desire by moving to another department? What does that look like, or what does that mean for you? The ending of that question was about creating upward momentum. Okay, so yeah, and to kind of build off of this, because that goes into the next question, I always like to advocate for, now this depends on what your relationship is like with your manager. I'm hoping it's a good relationship with your manager. I always like to encourage really good, strong relationships with the manager, just partly so that they're not surprised, but also because when you do decide to take on the next chapter, the next journey, when you do decide to leave your current role, you can have that conversation in a good, positive way. And there's a send off and a handoff rather than just a let go and there's no hard feelings. You never want to leave a situation where there's resentment. But the other thing is, you always want to leave your network feeling good and satisfied with your performance, with their experience with you, because you never know when you might have to tap into that network again in the future. I am a big fan of leaving doors, or not necessarily fully open, but leaving doors ajar, I would say, just so that you can always be there to knock on them, just in case you need that. You never know when you may come into a layoff situation down the future. And if you don't have the network to tap into when you need it, it could be a challenge for you getting another job down the line. So having that network can really save you when you're in a pinch. And so I always say start with a manager about potential navigation. You also don't know if the manager knows of or has connections with other leaders in other departments. So that could be an easy conversation, and they might have it in with a friend of theirs or a colleague of theirs that they could recommend you for something else. And that's like an even better way to get your foot in the door somewhere else. And it could be just a very honest, frank conversation. Now, if that's not something that you feel like you can entertain, or you don't have a great relationship with your manager, maybe that's not an option. That's okay. I've been there. I've I've had a not great boss, so I totally understand, potential desire or need to leave a role where you just have to get out. So that may make sense. Um, but you to know when the right time is to explore other departments, it's really going to be, again, that personal understanding of what you have going on in your own life and what's going on for you. What are your goals? What makes sense for your alignment? What's your timeline? When and how are you going to get to reaching those goals? So when you're figuring out those things and you have clarity on those things, that'll give you more insight into, is this the right time to start exploring other areas or not? If you have big financial goals and you're not necessarily at that financial capacity because you've reached the cap to where you are and you're just not going to make it with the role that you have now, and you want to make more money, maybe you've reached the limit where you're at now. So you want to start asking yourself some of these questions, these hard questions, and set yourself some goals, set yourself some timelines so you can start figuring that out. Ask yourself these hard questions. Another way to go about figuring out with the pay piece as you're navigating other departments is to ask around. So especially if you've been in your role for a long time, if you know of other colleagues, other coworkers, other friends who have moved to other departments, where did they go? Have you kept in touch with them? It's always good, especially if you've had people that you've known in a big organization you've worked with before. Um, Keep regular relationships with people. Try to have lunch with them every once in a while. Try to connect with them, just so that you can maintain those relationships and check in with them. So that way you know what's going on. And in those events, you can, um, ask about pay, ask about compensation, and if they don't know, maybe they know someone else. Like they might know. That's the beauty of networking is they might not know directly, but they might know somebody who knows somebody, or they might not have the exact answer you are looking for, but they might know somebody with the exact answer you're looking for. And so you asking around can really create some of that momentum around seeking the answers that you're looking for. Okay, now I know there's a part two to this. Let's see if we can get into that.
Personally, I would love to start my own business of some kind. I don't know. I've always wanted to do that. Just like a little side hustle that I enjoy, maybe in terms of spirituality as well. Um but I've always had this fear of being perceived, this fear of putting myself out there and then getting people's judgment. And that is a true fear of mine. And I don't really know how to work through it. But I was curious to know if you have the same thing, if you fear just being perceived and judged by people, and how you overcome that. Because I would love to get past that fear and do my thing and just, you know, kind of live in alignment. I would love to have my own little business. That would be so fun. I would really love that. And I'm a really hard worker, so I know I can make it work. I just have this really innate fear of putting myself out there, and then I don't know. It's so scary. So how do you handle that? Maybe it's not even a thing for you. I don't know. Maybe I'm alone on that, but
Oh my goodness. Oh, that's such a good question. Um, First of all, I just need to express what an amazing dream to have this vision of having even a side hustle, to have a business, of women in business, women in entrepreneurship is such a beautiful thing. It creates other jobs for other women too. But to have these dreams and then to act on them, it is a huge step and it is very scary. And to think that I'm sitting here now and that it's not scary for me, I'm just going to say, well, girl, I am scared. It is very scary for me. You're not the only one. I'm not the only one. I know that. I think that me going through this now is part of it. I know that me putting myself out there, I'm not the only one. I've met other creators, other podcasters who are also going through this process of finding themselves again, or some of my other coaching friends who are also trying out these new things. And I have tried so many things in this last year that have just continued to fail and haven't worked out. So the constant me putting myself out there and getting the fear of getting rejected is like a constant. And that is, I actually met this creator recently through YouTube, and she also has, one of her videos she created, she talks about something called the ego death, or the death of your ego. And I related so hard to that because I think that's part of what you're talking about is like this fear of putting yourself out there and then of things not working out or the rejection or um it's so, so scary, and I think that's something that, is really important to reflect on and sit with. W If you have any kind of dream, to think about what is truly holding you back. Is it this fear? Why is it so scary? What about that is so scary? Thinking through what makes something so scary for you, and is that something that you can break down and work through? For me, the ego death has been so real. I feel like I'm constantly putting myself out there and getting rejected. And I'm doing stuff that like I get no reception on. And and it's like it never ends. It feels like I just keep trying things and then nothing's happening, and then I try something else and then nothing happens. I've created courses, nothing sold. I've created workshops, nothing sold. I've done so many different things to try and build my business. And it's, like I'm figuring it out as I'm going. And it's been hard because this creator was talking about how when you're coming from a place of where you were so successful and, you potentially were at the top of your game and you were making a lot of money and you were seen as the expert and, you had a lot of credibility, and then you're going out into this creator world where you're just a tiny little fish in a huge pond, and you're like basically being fed to the wolves because there are so many the competition is real. There's so many other creators. It is, it's very scary, and it's it's such a hard hit on the ego because here you were doing such a great job being praised and being acknowledged and being rewarded. And at least in my case, that's my experience. I was known as the expert and someone who did really well in my field and someone who was highly praised and recognized and honored. And then I come out into doing what I'm doing now, and like there's nothing, like nobody even knows me. So it's been very difficult. It's been very difficult to get past this. And part of me is like, I just know deep within myself that I'm on the right track and I'm doing the right thing. But the fear, I had to break it down for myself. What was I really afraid of? Part of me was I was afraid of myself. Part of me was I was afraid of being successful? Like, what if I do really well? Am I worthy? That has been something that has been really tricky for me to process. And that has been something that I've been working through with my own coach. And I think when it all comes back down to being adopted through foster care, it all comes back down to my childhood traumas. But like every success that I have achieved, it always comes back to this, am I worthy? And I'm constantly in competition with myself, because once you achieve one thing, it's never enough. And I live with my daily anxiety, and I live with perfectionism, and the perfectionism is me trying to outdo myself, because I can get into this place of like never feeling worthy because of my childhood. And believe me, I will continue to get into that in a deeper way, but that's not necessarily for the podcast. That will be for another channel. But I just want to kind of give you a little bit of insight of where my mind goes and how deep you might have to go through when it comes to reflection on where you might have to dig when it comes to that fear. What is that fear that you really have, and where is it coming from? Why is it a fear? What is the root of that fear that's really coming up for you? And is it something that you can break down and really work through? So for me, breaking down the fear was bringing it all the way down to that. And then kind of piecing it out. I think part of it has been like, I couldn't even get past talking to myself on camera to a screen. So I would give myself little tiny daily challenges, taking it bit by bit, making this digestible so I can do it one piece at a time. And I would say, in today's world, you don't have to do things alone. Lean on your technology. If there is something that you want to achieve, especially as a woman, there's so much on our plate these days. We have our work responsibilities, we have our family responsibilities, we have um, our hidden responsibilities of things. Some of us are moms, some of us are older siblings, some of us have pets that we are responsible for. There's so many things that we have that we need to um, take on. Some of us are trying to conceive, and that's a whole challenge, and that's an emotional toll. But taking on all of that while also trying to live our dreams, that's a lot of work. Lean on our technology. So, like I've been saying, I started using Claude recently. I've used ChatGPT. What are some ways that you can lean into your technology to help you achieve your goals? There are things that you can do to optimize your workload when it comes to your AI. And I know, you know, if you have a fear around that, what is the fear around that? But are there ways to make your work load easier if you can leverage your technology? That's one of the lower hanging fruits to help with managing your workload and your scope of work. Anyway, that is all I have for today. I know I kind of rambled on a little bit, and I do have to close things out for today because the baby is about to wake up and I do need to go get his lunch ready. But thank you so much for listening to this call in. Stay tuned because, again, we are going to get into some of these Reddit files for the month. And we're going to get back on track with moon cycle stuff for the rest of the month. And I hope you're here for it because I am here for it too. Thanks for spending all your time with me in this episode. Remember, you don't have to have it all figured out today. You just have to keep showing up for yourself. So if this episode helped you at all, please feel free to share it with someone who needs to hear it. And I'll see you in the next episode. Bye.